Today, someone said he's just doing this to get over the loss of not being a prefect. It was a very passionate conversation that was going on, and there I was, reduced to nothing but a person who's grieving, a person who needs closure over something, and a person who can't get over something. So, am I just someone who lost this one thing, or am I something more than that? I began to question myself. Immediately, I pulled out of that conversation. They got what they wanted. They got me to think about the reasons why I was doing what I was doing, and think about why I was where I was. You know, the person that said it in a way to dismiss me, but I'm glad that they said it. It really made me approach things retrospectively, and made me really question my purpose of my being. The thing is, they don't really know what I went through during that time frame. No one knows what I went through during that time frame. It was a bleak morning. I just, out with my friends, and when I come back from home, I get a text from one of them saying, "Have you not, have you not gotten shortlisted yet?" They've told me that I've been shortlisted. I asked myself this question. I should probably ask, maybe I've been shortlisted, but no one told me. So, I called my housemaster saying, "Have I been shortlisted?" And he went silent for a few seconds. And like he knew what he had to do, he was contemplating whether to do it or not. But he told me no, I had not, in fact, been shortlisted for the prefectship interview. That day was really hard for me. I was so sure I was going to become a prefect. And every single time from C2 in those 4 years that I spent in senior school, there wasn't a moment where I thought I wouldn't become one. There wasn't a moment where I thought all that I was doing in this school, all that I was doing, coming every day and doing each and everything, debates and whatnot, wasn't leading up to that one moment of becoming a prefect. You know, I was in C2 when I first this thought came in my mind. Our English teacher, Asif Raza Jatt, said to me, "Beta, you could become a prefect one day." As a joke, of course, was an inside joke among the Iqbal House prefects and seniors that those who stand in line properly become prefects or something. And he was joking, but in my mind, I thought, why can't it be me? I'm a good person, am I not? I think I can lead people. And so, there I was, person in C2 with huge dreams. I'm going to become a prefect and whatnot. And it was sad. For 4 years, each and everything I did, each and every struggle that I faced, all of that I was thinking that was leading up to that one moment, right? And then not being shortlisted for an interview, like not even being like selected for an interview, let alone being given the chance to be, a prefect. That was devastating. But it was what it was, and I had to get over it. But that doesn't mean I gave up. That doesn't mean I just accepted that I'm not going to become a prefect. Next day, I went to the school, and my father had already called Miyasal, the principal, and for a re-evaluation to see the points. And when I saw, I was truly surprised. I saw the form I had given, and I had calculated my points to be around 71. Not that it matters. And they had made it, or the form that had been given from my side was 50, like a 20-point difference. I was surprised and frankly relieved because it meant that I didn't mess this up, someone else did. And I told the principal that there's been a miscalculation, there has been a discrepancy. This is not the form that I gave. The principal looked at me with stern eyes and said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Call the housemaster." And that's what I did. I called the housemaster, who at this point in time I thought was my ally, was a person that was with me and would help me become who I was, or not who I was even, just would help me, right? When I go in there and I tell them, okay, there's been a discrepancy, and I tell them exactly where the points have not been counted and such. The first person that attacks me is not the principal, it's my own housemaster. He says, "Are you saying I erased those marks? You're saying that I did this?" I said, "Sir, I never said that. I never said what you're claiming for me to have said. I'm just saying you might have miscalculated." Because now, in that one, you know, moment, I had realized that this guy did not want me becoming a prefect, and this was his way of showing that. I said, "That's okay." And so I said again, "Sir, I'm not saying that." He started shouting at me. He said, "What are you saying then? What vendetta do I have against you?" A lot of things came to mind about why someone like him would have a vendetta, but I said nothing. But the time that I told him, one of my close friends, Huzafa, didn't qualify, didn't, after forgetting debate for 2 times in 2 years in a row, by the way, he shouldn't be allowed to debate this time as well. To which he said, "He's from a powerful household. There's nothing we can do." Or the time where another person from a powerful household, everyone had taken their shirts off for this role, for becoming this, jungle person that they had assigned the roles to us. But this certain person didn't take their shirts off, even though it was mandatory, right? And I remember one of my friends, I won't take any names, asking, "Why hasn't this guy taken his shirt off?" And he's just from a powerful household. Maybe it was that, maybe it was something else. Regardless, those moments played in my mind. Or how this one time I asked him if I could go into elocution, and he said, "No, you cannot go into elocution." Or this one time that I said I could go into the English debates, and he said, "No, you cannot go into English debates." And I said, "Urdu debates." He said, "No, you cannot go into Urdu debates." And a lot of these moments started playing in my mind, and how how this one time when I was, for a role, I was an APS student and I didn't perform well, and how he scolded me so much during that I was almost crying. These moments was started playing in my mind. I was in C2 at that time, but still, these moments started replaying in my mind. Okay, must be one of those things. I know he hates me, but not to this extent, right? But well, it is whatever. And then the principal, seeing that this guy was getting out of hand, says, "Beta, go write an application for this. We shall see what happens." I wrote an application enthusiastically, thinking that something would change, thinking that something or some that this is a way to salvation, that I hadn't messed this up. But then I was giving that application. Another guy told me I could never become prefect because the person that they have against from me going into the top 5 would remove another person that has a big Sifarish being, and he told me to stop struggling and let it happen. I said, who the fuck is this guy, right? To tell me what I should or shouldn't do. I didn't even pay notice to his things or how it was being said. I just said, okay, it is what it is. Anyways, when I went to the office and gave my application, he said, we shall see. The principal said, we shall see. Yours are being recounted. And then he said, okay, I should probably delay the interviews as I have to recount each and every one. He said that. During this scuffle, sort of, I had seen the points of each and every candidate, and also I had seen the points of the person at the top of our house. The same things that I hadn't gotten points for, he had gotten, but I kept it in my heart. I didn't say anything because who was I to say something when this wasn't saying one person didn't belong to me. I didn't want anyone else to do that to me, so why should I say something about them? But regardless, it was what it was, and I just went back. But who knew that the housemaster was determined to not make me a prefect? He brought out multiple rule books from 1950s, 60s, 70s. Who knows? He went to different housemasters, and then he went to the freaking headmistress senior as well. But I thought something was happening. But through this, I was doing something, and that was initially my downfall because I expected something to happen. A week passed, and the housemaster started telling all his colleagues, "Iska to khel khatam hai," as in he's lost it, and his game is done. You know that the cards that I had, I have played, and now it's his time to play what he wants to play. Mind you, I was just a person who quite recently I had thought was my ally and wanted me to become prefect. Now had these thoughts in his mind and had these opinions about me. Well, who knows why? Who knows why? I never questioned it. But regardless, I came home sad and defeated that day. My mother asked me if I had gotten shortlisted. I just repeated what the principal had said. The fact that he said he'd recount everyone's marks and such, and the fact that I took, you know, examples in that meeting, sort of, that who had gotten marks for what and where. Regardless, nothing happened. He said he'd change my marks, and if something would happen. On the interview day, I went to. On the next time there was interviews, it was delayed a week. The next time there were interviews, the morning, they said, the morning of that paper, not paper, the morning of that interview, I still remember it. I was with a person who was the person that was at the top of our house. He called me and told me that, hey, you haven't been whitelisted or shortlisted again. I didn't ask why, because I knew that this person was determined to not make me a prefect, and he had the power to do so as well. Housemaster after all. And when he said chaos, there was discrepancy indeed in your marks. But whatever that discrepancy gained, we removed it from somewhere else. So you're still at that amount of marks. I said, okay, that's okay. Because I had accepted it by that point. Or rather, I had buried it. Oh, it's not happening. Every time anyone would mention, oh, when are they going to announce prefects? Oh, when are they going to announce prefects? Each and every time. I just bury it in the back of my mind because it was what it was. It asked me what, you know, things were. And sorry, I'm trailing off, but it was what it was. And then came Grand Assembly, the day I had been dreading, because it meant that I could no longer bury it in my mind. I had to see people get something that I had wanted for a better part of my life in as a whole, and also my time in school. As I saw one by one people getting announced from the houses, my house, other houses, and how each one of them was so happy, like they had won the lottery. And I saw one of the closest person there was to me being so happy, like his or her, for that matter, life goal had been accomplished. And I looked at them in awe, wondering what it meant to be recognized in that way, knowing fully well that in my life this moment would never come again. I'd always be the person who was waiting for prefectship, but it never came. That day was the hardest for me, seeing all of them lined up for a photo, all of them taking oaths for the prefectship, while I was still there, wondering what I did wrong. The person who said today that I'm doing this to get closure for my prefectship was there besides me, hugging me with another person who was also hugging me, because they knew that I had fought for it. I didn't show it to them. I was acting a bit jolly, and but it was so hard for me seeing them, seeing people hug me, seeing myself grieve over the fact that I could no longer become a prefect, and I had to just accept what had happened. But during the time my house was being announced, first was the first person that I had seen in the points, second was the second person I had seen in the points, third third was a person that told me about the fact that because of him I couldn't become a prefect. When I heard his name being announced for prefectship, I could hear ringing in my ears. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Why did it affect me so much? I asked myself. Why does that person specifically affect me? Maybe deep down I had seen myself instead of him, for that matter, and seeing how he was there celebrating instead of me made me depressed and sad. But I was what I was, you know. It was what it was. Regardless, I went back home that day and I controlled myself till I got to the car and I started crying. I couldn't just control myself. And when there's a song playing Snowman by Sia, I just lost it. The driver seeing a man like me, 6'2", crying or something he didn't quite understand, didn't know what to do. My sister behind me at that time didn't know what to do. And my mother in the car came into the car after that from a place we were picking her up from. She saw me and she said, "Didn't I tell you not to go? Why would you hurt yourself like this?" I know she told me not to go, but someone else told me to go. This someone else being ChatGPT. I'd asked ChatGPT what should I do because I knew I'd cry and I knew it would hurt me. But ChatGPT said, "No, you should go because you're gonna regret it. You're gonna regret seeing this woman and it's necessary for your closure." Yes, I just ChatGPT said so I should go. That's why I went to basically see ChatGPT. Anyways, from that moment on, life was so hard. Every day that I went to school, I couldn't see myself as a person who saw all the prefects and, as a normal student. I could see myself as a person who didn't become a prefect and all these other people as prefects. And all my friends became prefects. And whenever I sat with them and whenever I talked to them, it was no longer talking between two friends. It was always talking between a prefect and a non-prefect because all they wanted to talk about how good this new position is and how these are the responsibilities and whatnot. And I could just listen and do nothing. It was one of the most hardest moments in my life, hearing about it and not doing anything. You know, the purpose of me making this video was to vent out my frustration, but it turned into a story time. Anyways, the point of the matter is that this person who told me to that I'm getting closure from this made me angry, made me sad that he doesn't realize what I went through. He doesn't realize how it felt. He doesn't realize what it meant to lose that in that way. And he doesn't realize what I still go through whenever I see someone in that blue coat, in that blue ribbon coat. When I see someone wearing the tie that I so wished for so dearly, you know, and it's just sad. It's so sad. And if there was one thing I could do over again, if there was something in my hands which I could do over again, all I wanted to do was become a prefect, and I would trade anything in the world for it, and I mean anything, all for that one chance to be up there in the crowd of people that got recognized, in the crowd of people that meant they mattered and I didn't. All I want from life is that one day redone, but this time I want to be the one on the stage. After this, the play had happened, and during that time, a lot of prefects were there, a lot of non prefects were there, but all I could think about was how I could have been a prefect, how they got a chance and I didn't. I think it happened in December when I learned that I would not be becoming a prefect, or maybe January, I'm not sure, somewhere along those lines, I realized. But regardless, this grief has still not gone. I've stopped complaining about it. I've stopped telling people how I feel about it. But every time I see that quote, every time I talk to someone who got it and I didn't, every time I see a photo of that sash, of that coat, of that badge, of that tie, all I can think about is the fact that I didn't become one. And it hurts me so much. And there's nothing I can do about that. So when someone attacks me for getting closure for prefectship, I know I never will. And I know it's going to be one of the most miserable and one of the most pathetic things I have to go through in life. And that nothing will ever come close to it. And the fact that no matter what I achieve, nothing will compare to the fact that I wasn't on that stage when it really mattered. And I don't like being condensed to this form of a person who's just going through grief. But it's been 4 months, January, February, March, and it's April now. And I say to people it's gotten better, that I've forgotten about it, but I haven't, and I don't think I ever will. And for the people, and and when I see someone else going through that same thing that I went through, even though it's not the same, but still somewhat the same, I can't help but feel what I felt at during that time and what I still feel every time someone brings up this topic. And then they attack me for getting closure over my prefectship by saying what's wrong with the system and saying what wrong has been done. It's sad. It really is sad how some people just attack you like that when they don't know what you've gone through, and when they haven't lived the sleepless nights that you lived through the pain of seeing each and every person that you knew in your life succeed while you're left behind. I recently got a big achievement, but instead of enjoying it, all I could think about was the fact that this achievement now means nothing because I didn't become that one thing. and I'll never forget it.